Beneath the veneer of skepticism, reality bears witness to chilling truths. In the haunting corridors of history, where shadows dance with undeniable evidence, remember this, the stories are true.
All right, buckle up, because I'm about to take you on a wild ride through one of the creepiest urban legends to ever grip Britain. We're talking about the Crying Boy, a painting so infamous it had people setting fire to their own living rooms. No joke. Picture this, it's 1985, and you're flipping through the Sun newspaper. Suddenly, you see this headline screaming about cursed paintings causing house fires. You laugh it off, right? Well, half of Britain didn't. These paintings, they were everywhere. Mass-produced copies of big-eyed, tearful boys painted by this Italian artist, Bruno Amadio. He cranked these suckers out in the 50s under the name Giovanni Bragolin. Real sob story stuff, perfect for making grannies coo and parents feel guilty. But here's where it gets freaky. The Sun quotes this firefighter, right? He swears he's seen dozens of houses burned to the ground. But every single time, there's this painting of a crying kid completely untouched. Pristine, like it's mocking the ashes around it. People lost their minds. Suddenly, everyone with a crying boy painting thinks they're living with a ticking time bomb. You've got folks chucking these paintings out windows, burying them in gardens, even organizing mass bonfires. Imagine that people so scared of fire they're starting fires. The panic spread like, wildfire. You couldn't give these paintings away. Charity shops were turning them down. It got so bad that the Sun eventually offered to collect and burn the paintings in a huge bonfire, promising to lift the curse. Now, here's the kicker. In all this chaos, nobody stopped to ask the obvious questions, like why would a mass-produced print be cursed? Or hey, maybe these things survive fires because they're printed on fire-resistant board? But that's the thing about urban legend, isn't it? Logic takes a back seat to a good scary story. And man, did this story have legs? It didn't just stop at fires. Soon, you had people claiming these paintings were causing all sorts of spooky stuff. Crying in the night, objects moving, shadows where they shouldn't be. Your story about the woman hearing sad cries? That's a perfect example of how the legend kept growing. Even today, decades later, you'll still find people swearing these paintings are bad news. It's like the British version of Bloody Mary or the Hookman. So, next time you're rummaging through a dusty old antique shop and you see a pair of sad eyes staring at you from a frame, maybe think twice before bringing it home. After all, why risk it? Unless, of course, you're looking to start a good old-fashioned urban legend of your own. In which case, hang that sucker up and get ready for one hell of a story.
Hold tight for the next one. Ghosts, bellhops and bourbon. A spirited stay at the Bourbon Hotel. Imagine checking into your hotel after a long day exploring the vibrant streets of New Orleans. You're ready to kick off your shoes, pour yourself a drink, and maybe binge watch some questionable TV shows. But wait, just as you're about to settle in, there's a knock on the door. You open it and nobody's there. Spooky, right? Well, welcome to the Bourbon Hotel, where the bellhops might just be a little more transparent than usual. Nestled in the heart of the French Quarter, the Bourbon Hotel is not just any old place to rest your head. Oh no, this place is steeped in history, drama and a bit of ectoplasmic activity. Built in 1817, this charming establishment has seen it all, from grand ballroom dancers to serving as a convent and orphanage. If walls could talk, these would probably scream. Now, let's talk about the star of the show, the ghostly bellhop. Unlike your average hotel staff, this guy doesn't expect tips, which is great, because who carries cash these days anyway? Guests have reported a young man in a vintage bellhop uniform knocking on doors and then vanishing into thin air when the door is opened. Talk about dodging awkward small talk. Some say he's just an overzealous employee who never quite clocked out. Others believe he's simply committed to the guest experience from beyond the grave. Either way, his dedication is pretty inspiring, even if his customer service skills are a bit, well, ghostly. There are plenty of theories about who this spectral bellhop was in his earthly life. One popular story suggests he met an untimely end during a fire or another tragic event. Whether he's a former employee who loved his job a bit too much or a spirit trapped by the hotel's history His presence adds a unique charm to your stay. The Bellhop isn't the only otherworldly resident. The Bourbon Hotel is a veritable party of the paranormal. Guests have reported seeing Confederate soldiers, children playing in the hallways, and even a dancing woman in the ballroom. It's like a supernatural soiree every night. The hotel's haunted reputation has made it a hotspot for ghost hunters and curious tourists alike. Paranormal investigators have captured all sorts of eerie evidence, from mysterious sounds to ghostly images. Even if you're a skeptic, spending a night here might just make you a believer, or at least give you a good story to tell. So, if you're planning a trip to New Orleans and looking for a place with a bit of character and characters from beyond, the Bourbon Hotel should be at the top of your list. Whether you're there for the history, the ghosts, or just a good night's sleep, you're in for an unforgettable experience. Just remember to be polite to the bellhop. After all, he's been working there a long time. Next time you hear a knock at your door, don't be too quick to answer. Or do. Who knows? Maybe you'll finally get to meet the most dedicated bellhop in New Orleans. Cheers to a stay that's out of this world. Hold tight for the next one.
Hey, have you heard about the Enfield Poltergeist? It's this wild story from England back in the late 70s. Imagine this. A quiet, regular family, the Hodgsons, living in this unassuming house in Enfield, London. There's Peggy, the single mom, and her 4 kids, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. So one night, out of nowhere, their furniture starts moving on its own. Yeah, seriously, like chairs sliding across the room and nobody's touching them. The family is just sitting there, dumbfounded. Then they start hearing these loud knocking sounds. Bang, bang, bang. It's like someone's inside the walls, but there's no one there. She calls the police. The cops show up, and even they see a chair move by itself. Can you believe that? The police are like, "We can't help you with ghosts." Enter Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. These two are like the Sherlock Holmes and Watson of ghost hunting. They start staying at the house and witness all sorts of crazy stuff. But get this. 11-year-old Janet starts speaking in this creepy, deep voice, like an old man. She'd be sitting there, and suddenly, this voice comes out of her, saying the weirdest, creepiest things. It was like something straight out of a horror movie. People were divided. Some were like, yep, definitely a poltergeist. Others thought the kids were pulling an elaborate prank. They did catch Janet trying to bend spoons and stuff a couple of times, but even then, not everything could be explained away. Eventually, all the weirdness just stopped, just like that. But the family was left pretty shaken. The story became a legend. It's been featured in documentaries, books, and even inspired movies like The Conjuring 2. So what do you think? Real poltergeist or just a bunch of kids looking for attention? Either way, it's a story that makes you wonder about the supernatural, doesn't it?
Hold tight for the next one.
Dude, you won't believe the crazy stuff I just read about this town in Ohio. It's like something out of Stranger Things, but in real life. So picture this. You're in this quiet, normal-looking small town. Nothing special, right? But then people start talking about seeing these things. They're calling them shadow people, and it's freaking everyone out. Here's the deal. Folks are saying they keep seeing these dark human-shaped figures out of the corner of their eye. But it's not just like, oh, I thought I saw something. Nah, it's way creepier. These shadows are described as pitch black, like voids in the shape of a person. And the worst part? When people see them, they get hit with this overwhelming sense of dread, like heart-pounding, cold sweat kind of fear. It's not just happening at night either. People are seeing these things in broad daylight, in their homes, at work, walking down the street. 1 minute everything's normal, then bam! Shadow figure right there in your peripheral vision. But the second you try to look directly at it, poof, gone. The whole town's on edge. People are scared to be alone, always feeling like they're being watched. Some folks are even talking about moving away. Can you imagine living like that? Now I know what you're thinking. Mass hysteria, right? Or maybe some kind of shared hallucination. But here's the thing. The descriptions are so consistent. And it's not just a few people. We're talking a significant portion of the town reporting the same experience. Of course, there are skeptics trying to explain it away. Some are blaming it on stress, lack of sleep, or even some kind of environmental factor. But none of that really explains why it's happening to so many people all at once. What do you think? Is this some next-level paranormal activity, or is there a logical explanation we're missing? Either way, I bet that town isn't getting many tourists these days.
Hold tight for the next one.
Hey there! You know how I love a good ghost story, right? Well, let me tell you about one of the creepiest yet oddly fascinating tales I've come across. It's about the ghostly nurse haunting an old hospital in Los Angeles. This one's so chilling and weirdly fun that it's practically begging to be shared. So, picture this. You're in this really old hospital in LA, the kind that's been around since the early 1900s. It's the middle of the night, and everything's quiet. The hallways are dimly lit, with flickering lights adding to the spooky atmosphere. Patients and staff alike have reported seeing this nurse who just doesn't fit in with the rest. This nurse isn't your typical modern medical professional. No, she's dressed in an old-fashioned uniform, a white dress, apron, and one of those neat little caps they used to wear back in the day. People who have seen her say she looks like she stepped straight out of a history book. Here's the kicker. She's a ghost. Yep, you heard me right. This nurse, who seems so dedicated to her duties, is actually an apparition. Witnesses often spot her performing typical nursing tasks, like checking on patients or walking down the hallways. But when someone tries to approach her or get a closer look, she disappears around corners or vanishes into thin air. Talk about a disappearing act. The story goes that this ghostly nurse might be the spirit of a nurse who worked at the hospital in the early 20th century. There are plenty of theories about why she's still around. Some say she died tragically, perhaps during an epidemic or an accident, and now she's stuck in the afterlife, still caring for the sick and injured. The hospital staff have even given her a name, Nurse Betty. She's become a bit of a legend among the night shift. Some people find her presence comforting, believing she's there to watch over the patients. There was this one time a patient woke up in the early hours, thirsty and unable to find the call button. They decided to walk to the nurse's station and, you guessed it, ran into Nurse Betty. They called out for help, but she just turned and walked away, disappearing around a corner. The patient, confused and a bit annoyed, tried to follow her but found nothing. Then, out of nowhere, there she was again, silently walking down another hallway before fading away like a mist. The next morning, the patient told one of the day nurses about the encounter. The nurse just nodded knowingly and said, "Oh, you met our ghostly nurse. She's been here forever." Apparently, seeing Nurse Betty is almost a rite of passage for anyone spending a night in that hospital. So, if you ever find yourself in an old LA hospital and see a nurse in a vintage uniform, you might want to think twice before following her. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the story of the ghostly nurse is one of those spine-tingling tales that you just can't shake off. It's a perfect mix of scary and strangely heartwarming, a nurse so dedicated to her patients that not even death could stop her. Next time you're in a hospital late at night, keep an eye out for Nurse Betty. And if you see her, well, just remember, some legends are true and some ghosts never leave their post.
Hold tight for the next one.
Okay, so get this. You know that old Toys R Us in Sunnyvale? The one that closed down a few years back? Well, apparently it was haunted as hell. And I'm not talking about by the ghosts of overpriced action figures. So picture this. It's the 1970s, right? Disco's all the rage, bell-bottoms everywhere, and this Toys R Us opens up on what used to be some old farm. Everything's going great, kids are getting their Barbies and Hot Wheels, life is good. But then, weird stuff starts happening. Employees are like, "Dude, why is it suddenly freezing over by the Lego aisle?" And then someone's in the bathroom, doing their business, when suddenly, bam, the paper towels start unrolling by themselves. I mean, talk about a crappy situation, right? This ghost, right? He's not some creepy child spirit or anything. Nope, he's this lovesick Swedish dude named Johnny Johnson. Apparently, back in the 1880s, he was working on the farm that used to be there, and he fell hard for the farmer's daughter, Elizabeth. Classic forbidden love story. So what happens? Johnny gets himself killed in some freak accident. Some say he was chopping wood and went all Edward Scissorhands on himself. Others say a horse got him. Either way, not a great day for old Johnny. Fast forward to the 70s, and Johnny's ghost is just chilling in this Toys R Us, probably wondering why the hell there's a giant giraffe mascot everywhere. He's moving stuff around, making it cold, and occasionally people swear they can smell roses. I guess even in the afterlife, Johnny's trying to romance Elizabeth. The best part? In 1978, they brought in this psychic named Sylvia Brown to do a seance. Can you imagine? There's Jeffrey the giraffe in one corner, and in the other, there's a bunch of people trying to contact the spirit world next to the Barbie Dreamhouse display. During this seance, some photographer's film came out blank, except for one shot that showed this faint outline of a figure. The whole thing blew up when it was on that show, That's Incredible, in 1980. Suddenly, everyone and their mom wanted to go ghost hunting in the Nerf gun aisle. But here's the kicker. There's no actual proof that Johnny Johnson ever existed. No records, Nada. So either this ghost is the world's greatest prankster, or someone at Toys R Us had a really wild imagination and a talent for viral marketing before viral marketing was even a thing. Sadly, the store's closed now. Toys R Us went belly up in 2018. I like to think Johnny's ghost is still there, though, wandering the empty aisles, wondering where all the toys went. Maybe he's even built himself a nice little ghost apartment out of leftover Lego bricks. So next time you're in Sunnyvale, pour one out for Johnny. Or better yet, leave a rose. Just don't be surprised if you suddenly smell flowers or feel a chill. It's probably just Johnny, still trying to find his way to the great big toy store in the sky.
Hold tight for the next one.
Hey, so you know I just got back from Niagara Falls, right? Well, let me tell you about this crazy place I stumbled across called the Screaming Tunnel. It's this old railway tunnel just off the parkway, and man, the stories about it are wild. So picture this. It's this small, creepy limestone tunnel about 125 feet long. It's been around since the early 1900s, back when it was part of some old railway line. Okay, so apparently this tunnel is supposed to be haunted by the spirit of a young girl, the story goes, and I swear this is what the locals told me, that this poor kid was either running from a fire or, get this, her own dad set her on fire. Can you believe that? Anyway, she supposedly ran into the tunnel screaming her head off while she was burning and died right there. Pretty messed up, right? People say if you go into the tunnel at midnight and light a wooden match, you can hear the girl screaming, and the match will just go out. Spooky, huh? Of course, I didn't try it myself. I mean, come on, hanging out in a dark tunnel at midnight? No thanks. But apparently it's become this whole thing. Ghost hunters love it, tourists check it out, and it's even in books about haunted places in Canada. Oh, and get this, it was even in a movie. Remember that Stephen King book, The Dead Zone? Well, in the movie version, they filmed some scenes right in this tunnel. How cool is that? These days you can just walk right through it. It's not used for trains anymore, obviously, but I gotta say, even in broad daylight, it's got this eerie vibe. Maybe it's just knowing the story, or maybe it's the way sound echoes in there, but it definitely gave me the creeps. Now, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts or anything, but standing there, looking down this dark old tunnel, I don't know, man. It's easy to see why people get spooked. Anyway, if you're ever up that way, you should totally check it out. Just, maybe not at midnight. And definitely don't go alone. Safety first and all that. But seriously, it's pretty wild to think about all the history and stories wrapped up in this one little tunnel. Makes you wonder what other crazy stuff is out there that we don't even know about, right?
Hold tight for the next one.
Hey there. Have I ever told you about the strange tale of the disappearing house in Scotland? It's one of those stories that gives you goosebumps, but it's also pretty fascinating. Let me tell you all about it. So, picture this. A remote, windswept moor in Scotland, miles away from civilization. Imagine stumbling upon an old, abandoned house out there, the kind that looks like it's straight out of a Gothic novel. But here's the kicker. As you get closer to this eerie house, it vanishes into thin air. Sounds like something out of a ghost story, right? Over the years, several people have reported seeing this mysterious house. These aren't just spooky campfire tales. Locals and visitors alike have shared their experiences. They describe the house as being old and run down, like it's been abandoned for decades. But every time someone tries to get a closer look, poof, it's gone, as if it was never there to begin with. Now, there are a bunch of theories about what's going on. Some folks think it's a ghost house, maybe tied to some tragic event in the past. Others suggest it's a time slip, like for a brief moment, people are seeing into another time period. Can you imagine that? A glimpse into the past, right there on the moor. On the flip side, there are more rational explanations too. Some say it could be an optical illusion. The moor's unique atmospheric conditions might be playing tricks on our eyes. Have you ever seen a mirage on a hot day? It could be something like that. Or it might be a case of mass hysteria, where people's minds play tricks on them because they've heard the stories and expect to see something. This whole disappearing house thing fits right into the rich tapestry of Scottish folklore. Scotland is famous for its ghost stories, tales of fairies, and other supernatural occurrences. It's part of what makes the culture so intriguing. These stories often serve as a way to explain the unexplainable, or to pass down warnings and wisdom through generations. There have been some attempts to investigate this phenomenon. Paranormal enthusiasts have tried to track down the house, but no one has come back with concrete evidence. It's like chasing a shadow. Scientific studies, specifically on this disappearing house, haven't really been done, which just adds to the mystery. Whether the disappearing house is real or just a figment of the collective imagination, it's a story that continues to captivate people. It's one of those things that makes you wonder about the world we live in and all the unexplained phenomena out there. Plus, it's a great tale to share over a cup of tea or a pint. Just the right mix of spooky and intriguing. So, next time you're in Scotland, keep an eye out when you're wandering the moors. You never know. You might just catch a glimpse of the elusive, disappearing house. And if you do, make sure to tell me all about it.
Hold tight for the next one.
All right, let me tell you about the time I visited Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh and had a run-in with the infamous Mackenzie poltergeist. You're going to love this. It's creepy with a pinch of hilarity. So, picture this. It was a typical drizzly Scottish evening, and I decided to join one of those ghost tours around Greyfriars. You know, for the fun of it. Our guide, a lanky guy with an uncanny resemblance to Ichabod Crane, starts spinning tales about the graveyard's grisly history. All very atmospheric, right? But the pièce de résistance was the story of Sir George Mackenzie, or as the locals call him, Bloody Mackenzie. Apparently, Mackenzie was a real piece of work back in the day, persecuting the Covenanters with such zeal that even the Grim Reaper might have taken notes. His final resting place is the Black Mausoleum, a creepy, imposing structure that just screams haunted. Now, this is where it gets good. The guide leads us to the mausoleum and starts talking about the poltergeist activity. People getting scratched, fainting, the whole shebang. I'm standing there, trying to look brave, when suddenly, I feel this icy breeze brush past my neck. I kid you not, it felt like someone had just opened a fridge door behind me. I turned around, fully expecting to see a prankster, but there was no one. Nada. Just a bunch of equally spooked tourists. And then, this guy next to me, let's call him Bob, lets out a yelp and jumps like he's been goosed. He insists something grabbed his leg. The guide, cool as a cucumber, says, Mackenzie must be in a mood tonight. Of course, everyone laughs nervously, but I swear Bob was not joking. He showed me later there was a red mark on his calf. After that, the guide wraps up the tour and we head to a nearby pub to calm our nerves. Over a pint, Bob and I exchange stories. Turns out, he was a total skeptic before tonight. Now, he's convinced that bloody Mackenzie gave him a personal welcome to Edinburgh. We had a good laugh about it, especially when Bob joked that Mackenzie probably just didn't like his socks. But let me tell you, as much as we joked, neither of us could shake the feeling that something very strange was lurking in that graveyard. Next time you're in Edinburgh, you should check it out. Just make sure to wear nice socks.
Hold tight for the next one.
In the crisp autumn of 2005, nestled above an Esso gas station in the quaint town of Bostrak, Norway, a 15-year-old's world was about to be turned upside down by a dream that would make even the most hardened skeptic question reality. On the eve of Halloween, our protagonist found herself thrust into a vivid nightmare featuring a distraught blonde boy, no older than 9, sobbing in her family's living room. The child, adorned in a striped t-shirt emblazoned with a silver star, spoke in Swedish, a language close enough to Norwegian for our dreamer to comprehend. The words bus accident echoed ominously as the spectral boy gesticulated towards the Esso station below. Awakening with a start on October 31st, the teenager was gripped by an overwhelming sense of impending doom. Convinced that a bus was destined to crash into the very foundation of their home, she frantically relayed her nocturnal vision to her parents. Her father, ever the voice of reason, dismissed it as a mere nightmare. Little did he know that sometimes the stuff of nightmares bleeds into reality. Throughout the day, our young seer watched each approaching bus with the intensity of a cat eyeing a particularly juicy mouse, certain that at any moment, metal would meet concrete in a catastrophic ballet. But as the hours ticked by, the dreaded crash failed to materialize. Just when it seemed that the day would pass without incident, fate decided to throw a curveball. That evening, as our protagonist and her siblings ventured to the Esso station for snacks to fuel their horror movie marathon, because clearly she hadn't had enough terror for one day, a newspaper headline caught her eye. Bus accident in Tenerife. The article detailed a Swedish tourist bus that had careened off the road near Tenerife's airport, claiming the life of a Norwegian tour guide and leaving 27 others shaken. But it was the accompanying photograph that sent chills down her spine. There, amidst the chaos, stood 2 blonde boys. One, aged 8 or 9, wore a striped t-shirt with a star print, mirroring the child from her dream with eerie precision. Now, our narrator isn't one for crystal balls or tarot cards. She's more likely to believe in the tooth fairy than in psychic phenomena. Yet, this inexplicable experience left her questioning everything she thought she knew about the nature of reality. How could a dream so vividly portray a tragedy unfolding thousands of miles away? Was it a cosmic coincidence, a glitch in the matrix, or perhaps a sign that the universe has a twisted sense of humor? While this remains the only instance of precognition in our protagonist's life, much to the disappointment of lottery enthusiasts everywhere, it serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes, just sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. And perhaps, in the grand scheme of things, we really don't know shit. So the next time you have a particularly vivid dream, maybe don't brush it off so quickly. After all, you never know when you might be unknowingly tuning into the cosmic party line. Just remember to keep that newspaper clipping, for posterity, and to prove you're not completely bonkers when retelling this tale at parties.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the unexplained. We hope these mysteries have sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to delve deeper into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and never stop seeking the truth.